This is funny because it reminds me a lot, the class I was just talking about has a final assignment and it's a policy proposal. And the first half of the policy proposal is propose a piece of legislation or policy change that will fix the problem that you're talking about. And the second half is burn it all down. You know, don't think about the economic constraints, the policy constraints, the governmental constraints. Don't think about your constituents. Don't think about people, special interest groups. Don't think about even the very basic capitalist framework we all live in. And it was like, you know, just scrap it all clean. What does it look like? So it reminds me of that, because I think people who think about these questions necessarily have to grapple with the fact that those two things can be different. I'm Kendall, and I am a cynical optimist. I think of myself as sitting at the intersection of environment and social change, race, historical processes, and so the term that I think is becoming popular to think about that and is easy to conceptualize is environmental justice. I think in an ideal world where things were not beholden to the constraints that we are today and not bound to even the systems of governance or economics that we're living in, I see a world that is free from capitalism, that is free from the logics that undergird capitalism, that are free from the formation of race as a regime, that are free from the constructs of gender as a regime. I see a world that, you know, lives in co-op housing, that is built from materials that are part of a reciprocal, mutual, kind of stewardship-based environmental regime. We should be having a justice system that is, far from the carceral logics that govern ours today, and far more kind of centered on restorative justice practices and rehabilitation. We should not be using cars at all. Cars should not exist. We should be thinking about transit, that systems that get people from point A to point B in logical ways that work, that are equitable, that are accessible to everybody, that don't function on what your zip code or where you live or your family background or how much inherited wealth you have. You should be able to move about a space that is made for you, that is made for everybody, that has a very communal logic underneath it. The question of having to excavate the possibility of a sustainable city from those logics is a whole separate question. But if we're going to daydream, that's what I dream about. One thing that guides me, I think, and I think I've told you this before, the one thing that really, I think about a lot, basically every day, is Mary Anais Heglar's point that she makes in her beautiful essay about doomer dudes, I believe is her term, and how there is this archetype of a white, heterosexual, cis man, able-bodied man, who cares about the environment but sees that we've wrecked the natural world to the point of no return and spoiled wilderness and tarnished it, and what's the point of fighting for anything at this point, because look at all the damage we've done and we'll never have it back the way wilderness was meant to be, and so why even try? And that doomer dude has the unique privilege to say that. And I think the fight for a healthier and better future rests with marginalized folks, with people of color, with non-binary folks, with women, with indigenous people, with the youth, because people who understand that the world is not perfect know still to fight for an imperfect one. And that's all we've known, right? We're born with blood through our veins that understands fingerprints of trauma from our ancestors and our grandparents. And knowing that the world has never been a good place for our people, and it's actually been built on the exploitation and exclusion and subjugation of our people, we know that, it's never going to be a perfect world and never has been. That doesn't mean you don't try, though. And I think for the environmental fight, to sit with the people who know to fight even through the hardest things, to fight through the world's most painful chapters, but to fight for just a little bit of a better future, that's all we can hope for. And I think that fight sits with me every day, because I know that, even our world today being so imperfect and our world tomorrow still being imperfect is worth it.